Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Steve, and today I'm hanging out with Devon from Start Playing Games. How are you doing today?
I'm excellent. How about yourself?
Good. You know, Next Level Gaming we had on just last week, and one of the links they wanted in their bio, because it was their GM, was for Start Playing Games. I guess for their bio for the Start Playing Games app, which I've seen, and I've been meaning to reach out to you folks sooner. For people that aren't familiar, can you tell us, who you are and what Start Playing Games is?
Yeah, Start Playing Games is the largest platform for finding games and game masters for any virtual tabletop, whether it be paid or free.
Nice. And how long have you been doing that?
We started building this in March 2020, and we launched in September. Almost a year and a half.
And so, what's the response been like? Because I know whenever the kind of the subject of paid DMing comes up, it can be pretty polarizing.
Yeah, I feel that's just a vocal minority because
Yeah.
the amount of people that have come to our platform and started exploring gaming this way has been overwhelmingly supportive. We are hearing people that have like always wanted to play and they never felt a place that was safe to play or um, a place that was safe to play or a group that they felt they could actually connect with, and they're finding these groups. It's kind of wild. It blows my mind. And people can find games so fast. I got this message from a player. He's like, "Hey, my plans fell through for my Friday night game, and I was really bummed. So I went to your site, and I was able to find something to play that evening. And game night didn't get canceled." I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love hearing that."
Yeah, that is awesome. I mean, one of the questions we've gotten over and over again over the years is like, I can't find a group. How do I find the gaming group? We've probably done several videos, kind of on like, well, here are some things you can try. But definitely, a service like the one you provide makes it so much easier for people, and also like gaming now compared to when I started, it's so easy to find a game, especially if you're open to playing online.
Yeah.
Before, like when you were growing up, you kind of like you had to like know somebody that knew somebody, and also it wasn't very socially accepted, so you had to figure out how do you ask around to find a gaming group without outing yourself.
Yeah, you had to like kind of like see like, okay, is this friend of mine? Like, can I ask them? Like, would they be
Yeah,
cool? And you're just like, hey, so what do you think of the book The Hobbit? Do you like that? Is that fun? You do? Cool, cool. Okay. All right. And you're like kind of checking things off to
yeah,
see if
yeah.
they'd be the right kind of friend to ask.
Yeah, yeah, like each question gets slightly nerdier than the question before it.
Yeah.
And
So
you're like,
like
all
if
right,
you
I
were a
think I got
wizard,
one.
what would you
So, what was the inspiration for this? How did you guys decide to do this?
um well, so I was a professional dungeon master for 5 years before this started. I was just running games for friends, and it kept kind of spiraling. Like, hey, my friends' friends want to learn. My friend, and then someone's like, "Would you do this for my office?" I was like, "No, I'm running like 4 games a week now, just introducing people to the game. I can't go run for your office." Like, but they probably pay you. I was like, "Well, actually, yeah, I'd probably do that."
Yeah.
And so then I made a website. I spent a weekend, made a website. Um, and a week later, after launching, I had a client that wanted to hire me. And then a week after that, another. And within the first month, I already had 4 bookings. And I was like, wow. And so yeah, I was doing this. And then I got to the point where I was so busy that I was hiring other GMs to take on jobs just because I couldn't. Because, like I didn't want to be the GM full time. I still really liked my, because I do product and e-commerce development. I wanted to continue doing that. So then I had a customer who was like, "Hey, do you know any GMs in Chicago? Because I really want one for the kids." And he's actually now an investor in our company.
Yeah.
But and I was like, "I don't. But like, it shouldn't be that hard." And so I started trying to like just get a Facebook group community so other GMs can connect with others. And I was thinking like, how could a website make it really easy to, connect all these different people with each other? And then my co-founder, Nate, called me up. We hadn't known each other yet, but he calls me under the guise of wanting to book me as a GM. And he starts asking me questions that are like product management questions, like about building like, websites, like what's the problem GMs face? And I was like, what are you building? And he's like, well, I'm thinking about building this website, Airbnb for like dungeon masters. And I was like, I've been thinking about building this website.
Yeah.
And we talk a little bit, and we were on the phone for 4 hours that night. And the next day we're like, all right, well, let's go and let's create this company.
Nice. So is that what you do full time, or do you still have your day gig as well?
Oh no, we all do this full time. We got a seed round of investors
Yeah.
that made it so like we can completely focus. We have a team of 5 now.
Nice. It is awesome being able to turn your passion into your career. Um, and that's not always easy to do in this space.
No, here's the thing. We have a lot of GMs that do this full time now that didn't before. Let me tell you something really cool. Our GMs have made $500,000 since we started. That's how much professional GMs on our platform has made so far. Not each, but collectively. That is awesome. We are creating a site that is legitimizing professional storytelling, and I am so excited about that because there's tons of people that either didn't have the ability to, some people that were disabled and they just didn't have the ability to connect and play games or, like generate money, like a job from their home. Some people that were doing the gig economy, and it was heart-wrenching to do the gig economy with, DoorDash, and now they're being able to, run Dungeons and Dragons. There's so many of these great stories I'm hearing from GMs that I'm so excited that we get to help make that reality possible.
Yeah, I remember kind of like the early on debates and the amount of heat and flack people would get over this. And so personally, and just my opinion, I think professional DMing is kind of terrible as a business model. But that being said, if that's your passion and you enjoy doing it, absolutely. But that's only strictly from a business standpoint, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're going in and punching a clock no matter what, then it doesn't matter. But when you're growing and creating businesses, there's no leverage in being a professional DM.
Yeah.
Because you only have so much time in the days. I used to be a personal trainer. It was the same problem. I could technically work for myself. I could make more. I could charge more. But at the end of the day, I can only see so many clients per day, right? Yeah. So it was very limiting. Where like for instance, like I make YouTube videos now, right? Yeah. I do the work once. I put it on YouTube and it's done. Or if you make a product once and then you can sell that product over and over again. So it's like, it's kind of cool if you want a job that you can create for yourself and you're like, well, what do you do for a living? Well, basically I play D&D.
Yeah.
But you're going to be playing D&D all the time if you want to keep paying the bills.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you want to be a professional GM in this industry, you're also probably going to be trying to find ways to diversify. So, the more games you run, the better you are at running games, the better you are at probably writing games eventually. So, I know a lot of GMs are exploring into like, okay, let's get some little passive income on DM's Guild, and then like you are now running the adventures that you're writing. So there's a lot of ways that I think, professional GMs can start to explore more ways to actually generate money rather than just running the game.
No, and that's absolutely, it's a great training ground because you do get a lot of experience. And I do know, and I've seen more and more people doing it. Megan Hardy does like a D&D. They're D&D games essentially, but with a little more learning focus on them on OutSchool. And they're and you're seeing more like DMs on OutSchool, and they're making decent livings. But they also work a lot of hours. But it is such a different space from when when I got to start playing the game to like, the satanic panic and, is socially unacceptable to now people are DMing professionally.
Yeah, it honestly has been such a wild ride for Dungeons and Dragons from
Yeah.
the 70s of what it started to what it is now. I won't deny that, but at the same time, we have people that are so stoked that they're able to run games. We have some folks that are they don't do D&D at all. They're like Alien RPG, Exalted, and they're running all these kind of niche, well, not niche, but just smaller than D&D games, and they're
Yeah.
finding an audience for them.
So, do you guys like have all that data as far as like what's getting played and like game popularity, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah. So I off the cuff, I have a little bit that I can share. GMs are D&D is obviously the most popular. Second is Pathfinder, and then kind of close behind that is like Monster of the Week, and then Blades in the Dark. So those are some of the other popular ones, but it's cool to see like D&D had 99% of all games listed
Yeah.
on our site when we started, and now it's slowly kind of moving down as you see more independent games get a little bit more attention. So now people are like, oh, I'm playing Mothership this weekend. I'm like, oh, nice.
Brian Smith wants to know what qualifies a person to be a GM that is added to the SBG roster.
So we don't do any like actual filtering. You could just join. You could join as GM right now, but you'll have to actually put in the work to see yourself like reap the benefits of a professional GM.
Free market, baby.
we have a couple docs on our FAQ that say like, hey, here's the best practices. We also allow GMs to get up to 20 outside reviews outside of our platform. They will show up differently than reviews from people that actually play games on our platform.
Mm-hmm.
But we understand that like you've run games with tons of people. It's really, really hard to start from zero. So you can get up to 20 reviews from people who've played with you previously.
Is there like any kind of ranking system?
There's a few sort systems that we're moving into. Right now, there is just like the default ranking system, which is just amount of reviews.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, like we're a brand new company, so like we're still kind of like curtailing it because we realize like some of our reviews are per session. So if you are in a campaign, you could review your GM every session.
Yeah.
So there's like little things like that like we're looking at like, okay, well, let's kind of change how this review works. We're actually going to be trying to make reviews really dynamic and ask a lot more when you're reviewing a GM. So you could start breaking down like, oh my gosh, this guy was great with voices. And this person was amazing with their virtual tabletops. And you can start to actually see a little bit more of a complex review. So if you're like, I don't really care about virtual tabletop, I'm all about the voices and the role play. And you can start sorting on just that kind of GM. Or if you're like, I'm all about tactics, I want hardcore rules, I want it crunchy, then you can find a GM that like is known for running that really, really well.
Nice. So, is there other versions of D&D being played on there other than 5e?
Yeah. I think 3.5 is the second most popular. Hands down. Someone was running 4e the other day. I came across some at 4e. Gotta love that minions rule. And then I think someone's running basic, but we had you could run any of them. But there's so many games being listed now. Like I can't. I'm not even sure which one's being run. But we have a lot of GMs. We have GMs that can run all of them.
Have you? So do you guys? Do you know like how many games are being run at any given time?
Oof. I mean, like I have a dashboard that would show me that. But usually like on any day, there's around at least maybe like 40 to 100 games being run.
So there's a good possibility you can find a game if you're looking for a game.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, I think the hardest time to probably find a game, I think, is Saturday nights, which is like just the most popular day for games.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But I mean, if you go right now, you'll be able to find a game for tonight.
Yeah. So, are you still professionally GMing?
Um, yeah, just not a lot. I probably I haven't run a game in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Yeah. But mostly just because I've been making sure everyone else can run games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still run games. I got my kind of like a community of folk that like playing with me, and so I try to run a game. I usually try to do it every other week. But I just haven't had the time lately with the craziness of building this platform.
That well, that's kind of like the kicker to like anything in life. It's like, especially when if it's something that's kind of a hobby or a passion project, you say like, oh, I'll do this, and then I'll be able to do it all the time.
Yeah,
And then the truth of the matter is, you just end up working on it instead of doing the thing.
it's very true.
So does that mean you don't have a home group, or you just haven't been able to get back to your home group?
Um, so I have a home group. Well, semi home group. I also am part of Total Party Chill, which is like my live stream on Twitch. And so I get to play with them, every Sunday. So but they don't pay me. We
Yeah.
pay.
Well, so you're
Those are
getting at least
those
one
are
game in a week.
Yeah, and I've been playing with that crew for like 6 years. So they're the crew that's like it's very therapeutic to play with them.
How long has that show been streaming?
Oh, about 2 years. We've been playing for about six, but we've only been streaming for about two.
And what are you guys streaming?
Right now we're playing Curse of Strahd, and we're playing it as if they've been Jumanji'd into the game. Which is very fun. They're all playing as themselves, just in D&D character bodies, but they have the mind of themselves, the players, so they can act on the meta that they know.
Oh, nice. Well, how'd you guys come up with that idea?
Um, I knew like I wanted to give them a break from our regular games, and I was like, let's do something really fun. And I said, well, it would be kind of cool if you got like sucked into a game. Because I think I really love was it a Galaxy Quest, and I was like, oh, this would be really fun to do as like a D&D game.
Yeah.
And so when they said, well, we want to play Strahd, I was like, oh, okay, we're gonna play Strahd, but you're gonna play yourselves, sucked into the game, the game Strahd. And they're loving it. We've gone, it's gone off the rails, but I think we're got like 2 sessions left before the big showdown.
That's that's kind of what I want from a D&D movie, to be honest with you, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think of how you could do a good D&D movie. I mean, obviously now I feel like they're definitely gonna do something Driz related because they've released so much update about the Drow, and
Yeah.
it seems like they're really laying the groundwork with to see like, hey, how would the Dritz
Well, they
toys
already
do?
released some information like on the D&D movie. So, I don't think either of us are going to get that. But what I
Yeah,
said or what you're talking about, um like my thing is like, well, if you're going to do a D&D movie, what is like kind of like what is the purpose of the movie, right? Like
Mhm.
for me, I get like I guess I have that selfish motivation of wanting to see the hobby get shared with more and more people,
Yeah,
and as the movie being a vehicle for that. And I'm like, if you just do like Lord of the Rings D&D version, all you did was make a fantasy movie, in my
yeah.
opinion, right? I don't think the D&D properties themselves are special enough to differentiate themselves from other fantasy because it's so like incestual anyway, right? All
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
from the same sources. But like if you do like something like the gamer style movie, or Jumanji, like that's a great way of putting it. Or there's like a indie movie called Of Dice and Men that
Yeah, yeah.
that is really good as well, where it's more of a dramedy and it's more a story about the players, but then they do stuff in the game. I don't know. It's really tough.
And they're because they're also releasing a TV show next year too, right?
Yeah, they're doing a
So
TV
there's a lot of
show,
D&D on the horizon.
and then like I don't know what I saw. It is a Dritz thing, and it's like a lullaby
Yeah.
that's going on during it, and I don't. I remember seeing it, but I've like absorbed so much information that's all mashed together at this point.
And doesn't Critical Role's cartoon come out this year?
Yeah, yeah, that'll be coming
Yeah.
out.
So I mean, I see all that happening. I'm like, the more and more people are going to be coming to the hobby, because of all these things.
But
I see it as being
I kind of think though, like, will they? Like you say, the Critical Role series, right, is going to
yeah.
be awesome. But like, if you don't know what Critical Role is, and that's your first thing you see, like, is it just an awesome show to you, or does it push you into like figuring out like what it's based on, and bring you to the table?
I mean, maybe. I mean, there's a lot of people that attribute like a lot of the 5e success was because of that one little bit of D&D in the first season of Stranger Things, and
Yeah,
the same thing kind of happened with ET, right? ET, when it came out, had just a very short scene of Dungeons and Dragons, but there was a huge uptick in interest in D&D after that one bit. So I wonder, like, I still think there's plenty of people that like haven't gotten to the hobby.
yeah, yeah,
But I think people love
yeah.
cartoons,
But you
right?
know what?
And as a
Here's the difference. They're
yeah,
seeing people play the game. That's a huge difference than going, here's this fantasy story that is D&D.
that's a good point. Yeah, like where they don't know, like, you could, how does this relate to playing the game?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
not a lot after Lord of the Rings, there wasn't an uptick in people becoming hobbits, right? Like, they just
yeah,
like the they just like the movie.
yeah.
And maybe they got more into fantasy. Like, I can see like a really good D&D movie getting more people into fantasy
Mhm.
than getting them into D&D.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, that's what I always told people is I think the reason why D&D like did so well with 5e is because a lot of people that are new to the hobby grew up with Harry Potter, Lords of the Rings. They've seen
yeah.
these movies and they're like, "Oh, I love this kind of story." And then it's like, "Oh, well, here's D&D. It's where you play wizards." Like, "Oh, dude, wizards are awesome. I want to be a wizard." and and so I think it was their interests were already kind of laid the groundwork because of like a lot of the millennial youth. They're like, oh, now I have leisure time. Like, yeah, I definitely want to. I definitely want to do this.
And also nerdy cultures are so much more acceptable now, so
Yeah,
it makes it a lot easier to make that jump.
yeah.
So
It does. I feel like there's less nerdy culture. Just like I don't even think D&D is like nerd exclusionary. I mean, I feel like there's so many different things that people are like, oh, I'm really nerdy about this, and it's like more like
yeah.
I'm very into something rather than that this is what nerd stuff is, this is what like jock stuff is, you know. And I like that. I like that it's become more accessible.
Yeah, well, and also if you think about it, like all those kids back in the '80s that were playing and were the quote unquote nerdy kids or geeky kids, um, are now like, well, now they're employing a lot of people, right? Now
Yeah.
they're kind of like the bosses and running things. And then also like the people, and the people that would play, like, as I got into the game later, you'd end up with like a lot of the theater kids would get into it, right? Which is natural progression.
Your kids love D&D.
Yeah. Well, and like, a small percentage of them are going to become professionals at what they do, right?
Yeah.
So, like, that means you now have like people that are getting famous and becoming celebrities that are also fans of the hobby, and we're seeing more of
Or
that.
writers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that are like, oh, like I'm writing TV now, but like I love D&D and I play with D&D with other writers, and
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a good time to be a nerd.
it really is, right? This is like the golden age of nerdom.
Yeah, yeah. Which, I mean, like, I guess like nerd and geek may even like phase out eventually. Like, one of the there's a YouTuber called Dungeon Coach,
Okay. Oh
and
yeah, yeah. I know Dungeon Coach.
yeah, and
Not personally. I'm seeing the videos. Yeah.
yeah, you've seen his channel. Well, like, so he's a coach for, I think, track and field, and like a bunch of his players he runs the D&D game for, which is
That's
like it's like Bizarro World, right?
Yeah. Okay. Let me tell you this one. There's a woman who hired one of our GMs to run games for her daughter. Her daughter's in fifth grade, and it's games for her daughter and her daughter's like three friends. So it's these
Yeah.
four fifth grade girls that are all playing in the same campaign, and they play like every other week. And they were one of like our earliest customers. Then it turns out that same mom ended up hiring another GM to run a monthly game for herself and all of those little girls' moms. So
Oh
they have a
wow,
mom group and they do a D&D and wine night once a month together.
that's
And I
so
was like,
cool.
I love this. This makes me so happy.
Yeah, I mean, especially like thinking about where the hobby was when when I first got started, and growing up, and not even like even as a young adult in my early 20s, I worked in and around construction most of my life, and like the thought that my coworkers would know I was going to play that I played D&D every Saturday night. I would rather have them think almost anything but.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it
And
was
now
like,
look at us. We're here on YouTube in front of the whole wide world. Both of us with jobs that allow us to just like, talk endlessly about D&D.
yeah. Well, you know what? It being kind of a job kind of changed things. Like, when I was doing YouTube and Nerdarchy and still working in heavy construction, like towards the end, I had no problem talking about D&D and what I do with anybody. And that took decades to get to that point for me. But it was only, but it was, what made the difference is when you can tell people that you do this thing, right? And they can tell you're passionate and you enjoy it, even if they think it's kind of weird, right?
Mhm.
Their mind like can be completely shifts, and they just have a complete paradigm shift when you attach something that they can value to it, like money. They're like, wait a minute, you
Yeah,
do this thing you really like, and you get paid to do it, and I'm
yeah,
like, yes, because whatever their thing is, whether it's hunting or fishing or race cars, like who wouldn't want to do that instead of some soul grinding job, right?
yeah, right.
So,
But also at the same time, like there is this like aspect of like capitalism that tells us like everything you do, you need to monetize.
yeah, and it has
And
to have a
so like,
value.
I see the reverse, and I see like when people say like, like you shouldn't be paying for the hobby. I was like, maybe you should, but like other people can explore however they want to play the hobby, however they want, and like we're not going to sit here and tell people like the right way to play games. The right way to play games is like everyone there is having fun.
Well,
And not everyone has, a friend who is a great dungeon master who has a weekly game open and everyone knows each other and they're very comfortable. Not everyone has that, and everyone usually has to like search forums, Discord servers, try to find a GM. That just didn't work, and now more people are playing the game, which means more people know how to play Dungeons and Dragons. It all goes back to the hobby and makes things grow and makes things a little more inclusive.
and also, right, like I find with those people who don't believe in paying for games or paying for the hobby, 90% of them are kind of full of shit, right? Because they all
Yeah,
have a price. Like they wouldn't pay for to play in a game that I'm running, but they
yeah,
would pay to play in a game Chris Perkins is running, or in a game with Vin
yeah,
Diesel or Joe Manganiello, or one
yeah.
of these really big names,
Right.
which is fine, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But like just be honest about it. Be like, oh, it's not for you, and move on. Instead of
Yeah.
like doing the internet thing, which is like, oh, I have to trash this thing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, let me set it on fire. Um, and again too, like even like as someone who's like said, like I don't really like it as a business model, but I have been paid to DM a couple times. So
Yeah.
even under the right circumstances, it works for me. Like, we were hired to run a corporate game, and they
Yeah.
were paying a
Oh, cool.
ridiculous amount of money for a very short amount of time. I'm like, yeah, I could do that, and
Right.
it just made sense. Or running games at D&D in the castle. I'm like,
Yeah.
I get to run games in a castle in another country.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can make an
That's
exception here. So,
right. Or like when you're running games for charity.
yeah,
Like we're doing a charity event for Pride this month with True Colors United, where GMs could run games, and those games benefit that charity. So people paying like, oh, okay, well, like even if you don't feel good about paying, for professional GMs just for yourself, like also like, well, hey, like, are you looking to help be a good ally and raise some money for a good cause, like, and then get to play D&D out of it, that's perfect.
Yeah. I'm for anything that brings more money into the hobby. I don't really. I mean, as long as it's legal and not hurting anybody, I don't care how it gets there. But just because it makes the hobby better, right? It brings up the value. Like a big problem of the industry is like so many designers and writers were underpaid for a very long
Yeah.
time, and they're finally like the wages are starting to come up and the pay is starting to get better. And for those people that are like, you shouldn't pay for D&D or RPGs, it's a hobby. I'm like, yeah, but that's how you drive all the talent away. When they're like,
Yeah.
I could write for this thing I really like, or I could write for video games, which I kind of like,
Yeah.
and get paid a lot more
Right.
and like feed myself and a family. What do you think they're going to choose? So,
Yeah. Because it also, like, when if you have 100 people that come into D&D, you know, from what we've seen, 10% of them wind up trying a new game.
yeah,
That's 10% players into new games. If you continue that loop, more and more people that play D&D, there's always gonna be a subset that's gonna be like, I want something more. And then you see people like playing, other indie games, and they're like, oh my gosh, like, have you ever played Blades in the Dark? This game's really cool. And then you get more and more variety that is all supported. And a lot of these publishers, like, they are a publishing company, but they are like 5 people, and you're so blown away by how much they could do with just a team of 5. Imagine what the gaming industry would look like, if the indie games doubled or just increased it by
yeah.
20%. It'd be a huge uptick, and you can see it, and there's a lot of benefits for the player.
And some of them are getting there, especially like Kickstarter's gone a long way, and also even like when 5e started to explode, I assumed that like there would be like a 3 to 5 year lag, and then other
Yeah.
games would start coming up as well. And I think it actually took a little bit longer, but
Yeah.
the but the thing is, it's like D&D's the gateway drug to RPGs,
Yeah.
and you start playing that, and then someone's like, would really like to play D&D, but with superheroes, and maybe they do a
Yeah.
Google search and go, wait a minute, there's another game that already does that. I don't have to
Right.
figure out how to do it with D&D,
Yeah.
and
And
so then the hobby begins to grow and expand.
and that's again like where we've seen growth is people like, I don't know how to play this.
Yeah,
But there's a GM that knows how to run it. So great. I'm set, and I think onboarding is one of the biggest barriers to playing games. It's why your friends roll their eyes when you're playing a board game and you're starting to read the rules.
yeah,
No one wants to be onboarded. Everyone wants to play.
yes. And honestly, like that is an instance where I might actually consider using a service like that, where I'm like, oh, I would like to play these other games, but I really don't want to learn all the rules and sit there and read a book, and because I don't
Yeah.
absorb information that way very well, and I don't have a ton of time either. So if I could just jump into a game and someone gives me a pre-gen character, and I can like figure it out and learn as I go.
Yep. Dave, that's exactly what I do. I hire our GMs to run games of systems that I want to be able to run, but I'm like, I don't want to read this whole book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was like, oh, play Blades in the Dark. It's like, I'll play Mothership. I'll play, and I'm like, oh, I can definitely run this now.
Yeah. Yeah, like someone invited me to play like a Monster of a Week game, and I played
Oh
like
yeah,
2 sessions, and now like I'm running a game of it. Also, it
so
lets you
much
know.
fun.
It lets you know whether you want to invest the time in reading the book too, right? Like if you
Yeah,
play in a
yeah.
game or two.
Well, that's kind of how it happens, right? I feel like when I introduce people to D&D, and I feel I've gotten really good at introducing people to D&D. I don't have them look at their character sheet. I don't explain the rules. We start playing, and I say, don't look at your character sheet. Just tell me what you'd want to do. And then when they do, is like, okay, I'm going to tell you how we figured that out with your character sheet. And we start playing that way, where they're like not thinking about like, what does this sheet say? They're more like, well, I mean, kind of want to just see if I can calm him down and talk to him. It's like, great, this is how this works. And you play by learning. And people get pre-gens, but by the end of it, they're like, I know what kind of character I want to build now. And it's much easier to go back and like build a character after you've played a game. Like trying to build a character before, having played the system is a lot of onboarding. It's a lot of work.
I still like I teach players the same way, and
Yeah.
I actually want to learn the same way as well, right? Like when I start playing a game I'm not familiar with, I'm like, hey, like especially if a GM starts like going into a litany of like the rules, my eyes begin to glaze over instantly. Like, look, how about we do this? We start playing, right? And I'll tell you what I want to do with my character, and then you tell me what I have to roll to make that happen.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Katie, exactly. Learning by doing rather than reading, and like I have such the older, and it feels like the older I get, the worse it is with my retention. Like I will read something, I will enjoy it. I know I enjoyed it, but I'm going to forget 90% of what I read, even if
yeah.
I'm like reading for pleasure or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's also that I have so many game books that like I need to read. But you know, I'll read it after I play it the first time.
Yeah, that's what I ended up doing with Monster of the Week.
Yeah.
And even then, like I skipped all the player stuff. I'm like, I don't need to know that. The players need to know that. Let me learn how to
Yeah, and they
run the
just tell
game.
me, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
well, what does that mean? Okay, cool. I like that.
Yeah.
God, what a great system.
So what is your favorite non D&D game?
Okay. I played Mothership for the first time like 2 weeks ago. Do you know the new virtual tabletop that came out called Roll?
It's called Roll.
Yeah, I think it's like roll.play is their website, but it's like a video and voice and VTT. Um, we got to play. We did like a founders meeting where like me and my co-founder hung out with their co-founder and we played a game of
Yeah.
Mothership. I have not been able to stop thinking about how fun Mothership was. Like I went and I like bought the game and like all a t-shirt and like two modules from the website like a day later. Um, and then probably Monster of the Week because I feel like I keep seeing I have the most ideas for Monster of the Week. You know, like I'm like, oh, it'd be really fun to run this kind of Monster of the Week game. You know, like, oh, okay, you're like real estate agents,
Yeah.
and your goal is to get rid of the ghosts that haunt the houses that are hard to sell.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
You know, or
Yeah.
your insurance agents and the amount of property damage that these monsters or aberrations are causing is affecting the bottom line of the insurance company. So you have to go and deal with it because people can't claim. People are claiming like act of God when it's actually, there's so many great ideas you can have with Monster of the Week. Uh, so those are the two that I'm really loving right
I
now.
love the insurance or real estate paranormal d- uh department for a company.
Right.
We're like 3 sessions in and we're running like kind of like a paramilitary government agency.
Yeah.
It's kind of Alice Suicide Squad. So like they were all kind of coerced into working for the government, and the very first session was them versus the Jersey Devil. So
Ooh. Yeah. See, there's just so many good
yeah.
monsters in our own folklore to pull
Well,
from.
that's it. Like, and like a lot of what I want to do is just find urban legends for New Jersey because that's where we live, and just
Yeah.
use that. I mean, at some point, they're definitely going to Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
it's going to happen. I can't. I have to wait because I just did a campground, but
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll have a lot of fun with that. Um, are you playing in any non-stream games?
Um, actually, HTC Paladin, the creator of Sinuna, I got to play my first game of Quest with them. It was a non-stream game that was really fun. Um, but I haven't played that. That's probably the last non-stream game I played in. It's weird because my Sunday like stream game it feels like a home game just
Yeah.
because I've played with these people for so long. But um, that's probably the last one I've played. I haven't played any others. The other like non-stream is when like our community from Total Party Chill will play like a game like every other 2 weeks. We'll have like a community game
Okay.
that I don't stream. But and then if I'm teaching friends, that's the other nice one. My partner is excited to learn how to play D&D. Actually, my fiance now is excited to play, and so I'm going to be teaching them and their friends soon as a non-stream game, which will be nice.
It's I think it's important to get you to have at least one non-stream game going on.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
do you feel like even though like Total Party Chill is your home game and it wasn't always a stream game, do you feel like the game changed once you started streaming it?
They got shorter. We
Yeah.
went from like the 6 hour days of gaming,
Hmm.
um, to like a 3 hour day, 3 hour session of gaming. Um, but we still have like family dinner afterwards, and that usual stuff. Like we'll go out, like, all right, we just finished, let's go get dinner. Um, so not too much has changed, just like the length of time, and like maybe like there's maybe like 30% less bullshit,
Yeah.
you know. But I mean, when I think about it, the other home game is because we have this team at Start Playing, like we try to do a team game every month, which is non-stream, which is fun. We try to learn a new game system every month, and we just kind of cycle through like, all right, it's your month to pick a game system.
So you have to go through the mental catalog of like, what do I know that other people don't know, so I don't have to learn a new game.
Yeah, right.
That's definitely cool. Like right now, we only stream one game, and it was like our team, like company team game.
Yeah.
And once we started doing the Networky Live channel, we're like, you know what? Let's just throw this up, and we're actually playing Quest now. We've done D and
Oh
D,
yeah.
Quest, and Cipher System so far.
Oh, nice. I want to try Cipher System. That's on my list.
It's fun. It's a little bit different in the sense that, and Monster of the Week is the same way. Like being like a hardcore D&D player for so long, it is a little hard giving up the die rolling as the GM.
Yeah.
Because you're just used to
Um,
rolling off. But it does give you like plausible deniability, right? I feel like as the
I had nothing to
GM,
do
if
with
something
this.
bad happens, like they made the roll or didn't.
Yeah, right. It's like I had nothing to do with this. This is your own doing.
Yeah. Tally says, "Congrats on the engagement."
Thank you so much, Tally.
And I concur. If you're into such things, no, like you said, your partner is going to check it out and wants to try gaming. My wife, over the last couple of years, has started gaming, and we've been together since I want to say '93.
Okay.
Someone else can do the math if they want to, and literally, only in the last 2 years or so has she really got into gaming and now plays in a couple regular games with me. So
Yeah.
there's always hope
Yeah.
that it
Well, I
can
mean,
happen.
yeah, I just got to be, I got to be careful because it's kind of like you can't come in too hot, right?
Yeah.
If they know nothing, you can't come in like, all right, so here's all the Dwarven Forge, here's the city, this is your pack. You can't come in too hot on that first game.
I don't I don't know. I don't know if I've ever really invited my wife to play in any of the games before. I might have always just assumed she wouldn't have been interested, or that she would have said something if she was. Maybe it just took me that long to invite her into a game. Now that I think about it, but no, because like we always get that question, right? Like, how do I get so and so into gaming? And
Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like you don't, right? Like they kind of have to want to do it.
Yeah, I don't think I think it's very rough if you try to GM your partner to introduce them to gaming
Yeah.
because it's a power dynamic they're not probably used to of like how the game runs, and so if you're both on the same level as like players, I think that's a really good way to start. Is one of the suggestions that like I've recommended to folks.
Well, also like my wife had this really weird notion that the relationship between the GM and the players were adversarial,
Yeah,
right? And so like when I first got her into gaming, it was with my kids and her, and like and then like some of the kids' friends, and like they would like want to go off and huddle, so I didn't hear what they're doing.
yeah,
And it's like, well, I mean, I think it's funny, but it's not really how it works. Like, I'm not here to stop you from doing what you're trying to do. We're here to tell a story together. It's just that I so happen to play all the adversaries in the game.
Yeah, I also play your friends too if you'd start making some.
Yeah, yeah. If you guys would stop doing terrible things, you might make some friends as well. um, yeah, I think one of the early games, they they started a forest fire, and then like a druid
Sounds about right.
NPC showed up, and they blamed the drow. They happened to they had been
Oh,
fighting.
oh no.
I mean, they did try and combat the forest fire after they started it, but
Okay.
but they
You
totally
know.
blamed the drow that they had just killed.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess if they just killed up, they're just, you just kind of blame, like they can't say anything, right? That's when you bring in someone that can speak with dead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, later on, that that drow's brother showed up, and also had that drow's head that was animated and could talk, and I think they still have the head somewheres.
Consequences for your actions.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
D&D. Um,
So Brian has already signed up for the site and submitted a template for a DCC funnel.
Dungeon Crawl Classics. All
Yeah.
right. That's amazing. Brian, I'd also suggest take a look at our FAQs. We have a best practices doc for new GMs. Check that out. That is like the best path to success. We know that like sometimes people set up and they're like, all right, now I wait. Like, here's some great things that you want to explore to make sure that your game kicks off and is really successful. And of course, if you join our Discord, now that you're a GM, you should have access to it. We're always here. There's a huge community ready to help you.
Yeah, I'm sure you've gotten some great emails or messages from people who are now doing this full time. Uh, I mean, because really, like this is kind of like a life changing opportunity for some people.
Yeah.
If maybe like they didn't have a job they liked or like a low paying job to be able, or for whatever reason, like um, the workplace isn't as accessible for them, but this
Yeah.
lets them to tackle it on their own terms. So that's got to be kind of cool.
It really is. The I actually received this one the other day, and they gave me permission to share it. But a big thank you to everything you and the team have done with the website. I only started in January, but I run games on the site Sunday through Wednesday now. I got around 6 groups together, all playing, and soon I'll be able to start dropping shifts at my day job. I work in healthcare, and I'm not sure if you're aware about NHS, which is the National Health Service in the UK,
Yeah.
but it's quite possibly the most miserable and thankless job there, let alone low paying. Thanks to the website, I am able to start doing what I love for a living, and running D&D full time has become a realistic possibility for me. None which would have been possible without the hard work your team has put in and to keep the website running smoothly. So thank you and the team for enabling me to gravitate away from my awful job and make a living doing what I'm passionate about. Like, heck yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many
Like,
jobs that are necessary, but pretty much anybody could do them, and many of us would be glad to be not the person doing it. So, roll funny shaped dice and play make believe for a living instead is a
right?
fantastic opportunity.
Another GM, Robert Ducci, who I know if you're in the industry, Robert.
Yeah.
I just I think bought a new car, and when used a bunch of their pro GM money from the site to do so, which is just great to hear.
Nice.
I love seeing the success come to these GMs.
It is pretty cool. The last car that I bought, I actually pimped it out with like all the Nerdarchy logos, and and our mascot is a goblin bomber,
Yeah,
which is on the hood. So living the
that's
dream.
awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So what's is there anything next? Do you guys have plans for expanding or doing anything differently?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be starting to do in-person stuff. We're working with the fine folks over at Free RPG Day to help create like a nice scheduling system so people can find games near them as well, since the world's starting to open back up. So we're going to start
Yeah.
doing like in-person gaming. Um, we also have just like a ton of new tools that we'll be building, which is going to be like really exciting for game masters. And then we're working with a lot of virtual conventions and such, which is really nice. We're speaking with the folks at Save vs. Fear for their virtual convention. We're speaking with well, right now we have Onyx Path Virtual Com, which is coming up next weekend, which is really, really exciting. And so more and more conventions. We're going to be going to a bunch of conventions this year just to like meet and network with people. So we'll be at Gen Con, probably Dragon Con, Gamehole Con, which will be really exciting. Um, and then um, and then for me, a little fun thing I kind of want to plug. Total Party Chill, we produced a D&D album. We have some friends in LA that work, they're commercial musicians, and they make, music for movies and commercials. And they're like a great band. And we're like, hey, we'd love to make like a D&D album that's like not just like loots and such. We want it to be just like guitar, like electric guitar. We just want to be like a D&D
Contemporary
inspired album.
music, yeah.
Yeah, like when my group was in Avernus, there was the Highway to Hell playing. We want something kind of like that, and so we just released the first song, which everyone has loved. It's called Dragon Come Forth. It's by the Astral Players. You can find it on our site and a bunch of places, but we're excited to continue releasing like D&D inspired music. We have 4 more songs coming this year.
Nice. So you said on your site they can get it?
Yeah. And I'll
So basically, is it
I'll
like a
try to drop the link
soundtrack to the
too.
games that you guys are playing?
Yeah, sort of. So it was funny because Katie Day, who's the musician who does all the writing for it, and then Kyle Gardner, who's one of the other musicians. I came to them first because I wanted a what do you call it, a theme song for Total Party Chill,
Yeah.
and they made it, and it came out so well. I was like, hey, can we do another song? And then I was like, actually, can we do an album?
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah. And so the album, we just wanted to tell a story. And the idea is like, imagine the original score that a bunch of bards would have that travel from town to town. And this is kind of like their set is this story of like, you have your drinking song, your dragon song, like losing a party member, like the crazed wizard. And this is kind of like their set. And so it's kind of like the songs that you would hear in my Fantasy Worlds Tavern.
So what was the input like to it? Like I guess like none of you. I'm getting the impression none of you are musicians, contracted musicians, and to make this album. So what inputs did you give them, and then they kind of like spit stuff back out at you guys?
I ran D&D for them first.
Okay.
And then I gave them a huge data dump on like what dragons are to me, to D&D, and like what are some like how do people go into combat to actually fight them? Like what would a smart party do? What would a dumb party do?
Yeah.
And so like like you're probably gonna try to keep yourself from getting afraid. If you know that you're going into this fight, so you're going to do a hero's feast. I like went real deep. And so that's why, there'll be certain lines like, like we're not afraid of your fear, or so there's a lot of like familiarity they have with the property, but not enough that like, you're like, okay, they're just mentioning rules in this game or in this song. It's still a song.
So how much does it cost to have a D&D album made?
It's kind of expensive. But they're going to start like trying to find ways to make it really easy for other people. Like, okay, I want a D&D song. And they're gonna be like, okay, cool, $500 and we'll make a song for your group. That's what now that we've done it a few times, that's kind of like the rate that they're going to be working with other people.
So you guys like created this market that didn't exist before, maybe.
I'm really good with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I want to do a thing, and next thing you know, it's a business.
Yeah, that's most of the history of the work I've done professionally is like, why doesn't this exist? I need this. Guess I'll
Yeah.
make it.
Well, that is like one of my favorite reasons for something getting made. Is like when I hear like I really wanted this thing and I looked and looked and looked and I couldn't find it, so I had no choice but to make it myself.
Yeah.
Uh, necessity is the mother of invention, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. And then laziness is the second behind
Yeah. How can I get more of this with doing less? That
yeah.
absolutely makes sense. So, do you prefer GMing over playing?
Yes, yeah. I enjoy playing, but like I love kind of being behind the story there and pulling the strings. Um, and I think I've always loved that. Since I started playing, I was like 12. I went to a game store and I saw them playing, and they're like you guys want to play? We play on Saturdays, and me and my buddy were like, yeah. And I was like, the first book I bought was the Dungeon Master's Guide. I didn't buy the Player's Handbook.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. What the? I probably got all. I probably convinced my grandparents to buy me all three.
Yeah.
I, I just remember being a kid and they would always take me to the mall, and like I would go to B Dalton's and Walden Books, and just hang out in the book section until they bought me something. Essentially, but that's how I got. I believe that is how I got my D&D books. I know that I know the first PHB I had was the first edition, second printing, with
Yeah.
the I don't know if they were homoculuses and the wizard on the cover.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I definitely started with third edition. I almost played second when I was even younger because my dad was like, "Oh, my friend was telling me about this game called Dungeons and Dragons,"
yeah.
and he like brought it home and we were gonna play it, and we never did, and he ended up having to return it to his friend who he borrowed it from. And I just remember him talking about it. I was like, "This sounds like the coolest thing ever. I want to play." And then we never got to.
That's the other thing that's really cool now is like the number of players that are being introduced by their parents to the game. And at this point, there's probably like grandparents that are playing as
Yeah.
well. So it took me a while to get my son into the game, but now he's playing with his friends.
How old is he?
20, 20.
20. Okay. So yeah, so because I feel like I'm noticing a lot of like young kids like playing very early, and then like, okay, cool, like I love this now. And then there's like the other that's like the like late in life
Yeah.
kids. Yeah.
No, there's absolutely because Ted, his kids are I think his son's 13, my nephew's 13, and then my niece is like what is it, like 9 or 10. And and they'll both play D&D with him, and he got them started with No Thank You Evil, which is
Yeah. No, thank you, evil.
yeah, which is a great RPG for beginners and for
Yeah.
kids. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's essentially built off of the Cipher system rules, the Numenera rules, but modified a little bit to make it easier for kids. But the
Yeah.
thing that's great about it is the Cipher system is based off of resource management, and the way they handle that in No Thank You Evil is they use chits. So you have a pile of chits for each of your attributes, and even kids that can't count, they understand visually seeing something, a pile of something growing or shrinking.
Yeah.
So they can so they get it.
Yeah. That's didn't D&D use chits a bunch when there was like a dice shortage?
That sounds familiar, but I don't know. I never really experienced it. Although there was one point where I did experience a dice shortage. We had just gotten into the Fantasy Flight game Star Wars,
Yeah.
and you couldn't get the dice. And and they have the custom dice, whether you love them or hate them, but they have the custom
Yeah.
dice, and you need a bunch of them. Like one
Yeah.
set is not enough.
Yeah.
So I ended up buying a bunch of their starter sets to get the dice.
To get the dice. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Like,
Oh,
I have my regular dice bag, which is just basically most of my regular dice, and then I've got one about as half the size as nothing but the Star Wars dice.
so I'm a dice sociopath apparently because I will roll any set. I don't have like the favorites.
Yeah.
And my players are like, you're I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I'm like, nah, this is just as fine. Like, no, no, I don't like it. I'm like, nah. And all my sets are like mismatched now.
Oh yeah, like when I my ritual for in the before times when we used to play in person was I would just dump out my bag of dice like a cornucopia of dice, and then like I would spend like the beginning part of the session just sorting them
Yeah,
out, and like people like you can get dice bags that have separate compartments so you could like
right.
they'd already be sorted, or like a lot of my friends will use, I guess they're like sewing kit boxes or just
Yeah.
boxes with all the dividers in them, but like that's part of my thing is like picking through them and sorting them.
One of my players has a bag about as big as yours, and every time we sit down and play, they're like, open up, just drop it all on the table, and just, and then they kind of sit there like, okay, well, we're gonna do this, and that their turn is half deciding how many what dice they're gonna use for that turn.
Yeah. Yeah, some people they you have to use specific dice for specific characters, and
Yeah.
like I'm a psychopath as well. I just like have all the dice. I have a pile, all the different piles of the 7 different types of dice, and if they roll bad, I just maybe will set them aside.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it doesn't really matter.
No.
Yeah. So we were just past the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head on out.
Yeah, I think tons of people are looking for GMs, and tons of people are professional GMs. They're like, yeah, I would love to run games for money. Even like a lot of people, like I just want to do this like once a week. It's kind of nice to have a little extra cash and have a cool group that I'm running for. And we're creating these really cool communities. I mean, they're micro communities. They're people that like didn't have a group and they're joining a game by themselves, and now they have this group of friends that they get to play with every week. And there's the GM is able to do this. The GM is able to set aside the time and not have to concern themselves with like, well, I also need a job that like pays so I can play this every week. And the change that we're seeing here, I think, is really impactful for the hobby, and I'm so excited about it. I love that I'm seeing these GMs find a way to actually make money off of their passion, and it means a lot to me that we're able to do that, and it means a lot to me that people are able to get into the hobby and play some more. So at the end of the day, like, if you don't like paid GMing, that's fine because we got free games too.
Which is awesome. Yeah, I always say when you have a busy schedule and you're looking for things to cut, sadly, D&D or RPGs are start at 2 hours and upwards, so it doesn't make the cut a lot of times. And if you're the GM, it takes even longer. So
Yeah.
if you can attach a dollar value to it, it makes it easier to keep that in the rotation when you have to make these decisions. But thanks for coming on, Devon. I've enjoyed talking to you. Until next time, everyone, stay nerdy.